Hello again, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at one of the lesser known Japanese camera producing companies, and that's a company called Petri. Originally founded in 1907, it was a small-time optical manufacturing company that started making a range of cameras, I think just after the Second World War. This one dates from 1966 and it's called the Petri Racer. This is a later example, and you can tell the difference between the two because the earlier version only had Racer up here. It didn't have the name Petri or Petri on the top. Quite small, quite compact. Great for street photography, you'd think. I've already covered its bigger brothers, the 7 and the 7S, and these have this green focusing assist, where the little patch in the middle of the rangefinder is coloured green. Just makes the rangefinder easier to see. So let's give you a quick overview of the camera. It's very plain, but it's quite well enough featured for use. On the top we have the rewind crank for rewinding the film after you finished the exposures. Pretty standard. Got a cold shoe here. We have a frame counter over on this side, and we have a socket that you can screw a cable release into. On the back we have the film advance, which is this lever here. It just goes around to the side, and we have the viewfinder. You can see the patch in the middle there. Rangefinders work by, as you adjust the focus, so you get the two images in line. Straight edges are really useful for doing that, and then you can recompose your shot. Nicely finished on the back. I think we have a serial number down here, and to open the back there's a catch on this side that opens the back up. It's pretty standard. Take up spool sprockets, film guides, room for the cassette. This doesn't push up on these ones, unlike a lot of the cameras that I look at, which is why it's got this cutout in the bottom, pressure plate on the back. As you can see, this one's in really good condition. On the front, unusual, they have a shutter release here, so you cock the camera like so, and the shutter release is here on the front. The sound that gives it away, it's a leaf shuttered camera, and all of the controls are really around the lens. The back here you've got the focus, and interestingly this is the marks for it. So you can see the focus from there, 0.8 of a metre down to 2.75 feet. So that adjusts the focus. This next one adjusts the lens aperture. So this one is a 2.8. There was a 1.8 version available as well. This is the more economically cheaper 2.8 version. The 1.8 is probably the more desirable to have. And at the front we have the shutter. It's a leaf shutter, so we have B and the usual suspects, 1.5, a quarter, an eighth, etc. The 30th is the flash sync speed for if you're using bulbs, which was still fairly common in the 1960s. Not so much nowadays. People tend to be using electronic flash. It goes all the way up to a 500th of a second. And then we also have on this very outer part where you can set the ASA or ISO, because this camera does have a built-in meter. And the film we're putting in today is 200, so I'll set that for 200. And yeah, you've got all your shutter speeds across there. There's no, well, there is a self-timer built in, but the common with leaf shutter cameras, the self-timer is down here. So if you advance the film, if you push this little lever up, then when you trigger it, you get that lovely mechanical sound, and then it takes a picture. So yeah, you can do selfies with them. It's got some writing on it, Petri Camera Company Inc., made in Japan. Quite light, it's about 520 grams I think, so compared to what I've been lugging around recently, it's pretty lightweight. Push this button in to rewind the film. When you get to the end, it unlocks the sprockets and allows them to roll backwards. It does take a battery, and it was designed to run on these old style Mercury batteries. They're quite big and chunky. There are replacements available. I have put a new one in there. It's 1.5 volts compared to 1.35. But if you're shooting negative film, there's enough latitude that you don't need to worry about it. Transparencies might be a little bit less accurate. Tripod bush, and obviously the bit where the back just slots in to cover that slot. A couple of strap lugs, viewfinder, and the rangefinder focusing system that's coupled. As I said, there is a meter in it. When you advance the camera, you can actually see the meter needle from the front. It moves up, and it is coupled to both the aperture and the shutter speed ring. So as you make adjustments, it will move up and down there. You can see it is moving. It is coupled. You can see it in the viewfinder as well, but you can also see it from the front, so it just shows you that the meter's working. The known issues with these really is the meter not working, which could be the result of just a battery that's left in there and started to leak, which could be cleaned up. The focus being really stiff, quite common with a lot of cameras from this era, where the grease has just set rock hard in there. Can be stripped and cleaned and re-lubricated with a more modern lube. This one isn't too bad, actually. The more you use it, the more it frees up. And the shutters, which is their own design and manufacturer, quite often those don't work. So if you come across one of these, check the shutter, check the focus, check the rangefinder window is visible. Quite often they get dirty in here, and the mirror inside may lose its silvering. May be possible to take the top off and give that a bit of a clean up. But if you find one in this sort of condition, they're certainly worth picking up. There's your flash connection. Of course, being a leaf shutter camera, it will flash sync with electronic flash at any shutter speed. So it's a great camera for fill-in flash. And there is the cell for the meter up here. And the reason it's put up there is because if you put a filter on, a coloured filter like a yellow or an orange or a red, if you're shooting black and white, to change the contrast and the look of the film, the camera actually takes that into account with the metering, rather than you having to do any maths and work out that, oh, I need an extra half a stop or 2.5 stops or whatever. That's why a lot of cameras of the era place the metering cells behind the lens, so that when you put the filter on, it takes that into account with the light meter. I'm thinking Olympus Trip is another example where it's got the selenium cells around the lens. All in all, a nice little camera. It even gives you a tip on the top here. If you're shooting against the light, align the needle with this mark at the top, whereas normally it would be down here. So it takes into account backlit subjects, which is quite a cool little feature. So really small, really light. The meter turns off when you take the exposure. I don't know if you can see the needle in there, probably not. It is visible from the front, but once you've taken the exposure, the needle drops down, metering's turned on again when you advance the film. What are we at? 16, that's not very good. There you go. So when you take the picture, it turns the meter off. It only turns it on when you advance. Okay, we're going to stick some film in this, show you how to load it. So you open the back up. You need good nails for this job. It's quite hard to get in there. But yeah, it's a very nice, clean example. Fairly rare, these. They don't come up very often. Like all of these cameras are quite nose heavy. So today we're going to pop some Fuji, I think, into this one. Yeah, some C200. One of the budget colour films from Fuji. 36 exposures. And its ISO rating is 200, as the name implies. We've already set the film speed on the ASA ISO dial, so we slot the cassette in, we pull it across. Because there's no focal plane shutter, there's nothing there that you can mess up with your fingers. And then this slots into the slot in the take-up spool. Make sure it's aligned with the sprockets. Draws the film across. So once you're happy that it's got the film in there, just close the back. Make sure it's locked. Advanced. So the frame counter should have reset, so it has. It's reset to S. So we just advance. Fire. As usual, take up the slack. So that should turn opposite to the direction of the arrow, which it does. That shows the film is being drawn out. So then we just fire that again until we get to shot number 1, which is where we're at now. So now we take shot number 1. Now the meter is on until you press the shutter button, which is a bit of a drawback. Thinking about it. When you finish to take the roll out, you'll know you finished it because the frame counter will tell you you've got to the number of exposures that the film says it is, 36 in this case, and it will also go tight. You won't be able to complete the wind on. Push this button here in, fold out this crank, wind it in the direction of the arrow. Sometimes you have to hold these in. You wind it in the direction of the arrow. And you'll hear when it comes away from the pickup sprocket. There you go. And it will get easier because this is a film I want to reuse. That folds back into there. Pop the back open. And then take your film out, get it processed, put another one in, carry on shooting. Yeah, nice little cameras. I quite like this, and the fact that it's fully working. If the meter doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. You can still use Sunny 16 or an app on your phone and just set the shutter speed and the apertures manually. Focus, and away you go. So it doesn't really matter if the meter's not working, it's just convenient if it is. So there you have it, folks. That's the camera for today. A little Petri Racer. Nice quality lenses on them. They made their own lenses. They were pretty good at optics. 45mm, 2.8. That's how 1.8 was available. Colour corrected these lenses, so they're fine with colour film. Unfortunately, they couldn't deal with the competition and the move towards the electrification of cameras. And in the 70s, then they went bust eventually in 1977. They did have a range of SLRs, and we'll be covering a few of those on the channel as well. But yeah, quality, nice little cameras. If you can find one at the right price, pick it up. And if you're a street shooter and you can't really afford to run to a 7 or a 7S, this is just as good, I think, particularly if you find the 1.8 version. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Comments, questions, queries, etc. down below. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.